So why not turn some scrap steel into a sweet drift tricycle? And of course, we'll add a Harbor Freight Predator and some drifting sleeves. My idea is to make the frame from these angle iron pieces that I found in the back of my neighbor's truck. Can you see them? Yes, I'm 100% that neighbor that will go through your trash. My wife loves it. So using the bike frame and those angles, we've got a perfect 2-scale tricycle design. Since we only need the front forks, I'm gonna chop up the frame and get rid of everything else. Now, if you have a frame with front brakes, keep those. Angle iron comes in a ton of different sizes. This is 1.5 by 1.5, what I would consider probably the perfect size. I do have some 2 by 2, but this will probably be a bit too heavy for the frame itself and a little overkill. We do want to get rid of all those burrs and flashing. Well, okay, some flashing's okay, but we want a nice prep surface for the weld. For that picture perfect frame, I did take the extra minute to miter all of these cuts. I'm not doing a full plunge cut, but I'm just making a bunch of skim passes until you get far enough down and then you can go all the way through. Now for looks, I put the legs on the outside, and I think that will work great up until assembly. You'll see here pretty soon, getting some of those bolts tightened up takes an extra little finesse and a third arm to get up in there. Going back to my sketch, I made the width 20 inches by 18. Now I went with that, and that's just because that was the length of one of the pieces, so I rolled with it. These two kickers are going to be the support for my seat mounting, and I distanced them exactly the whole distance on my seat, so then I can make a couple different holes so I can move the seat up and back. This is a coped piece in that the top is going to be flush, but then the flange on the bottom still continues, so then you can get a weld all the way up and down. I picked up a 1-inch live axle and then some pillow block bearings. They work awesome for this situation. You'll notice that I actually doubled up the holes for where the engine's mounting, and that's because with an angle grinder, you can then make slots. And that's just to help out because it's a guarantee your chain length will need to be adjusted. Since I love eating grinder sparks, I decided not to keep these front supports and used my own. I wanted them a little longer, which of course meant it just took longer to get those angles just right. That will do. Onto a couple little end supports to that frame and then a gusset up to that main support for the forks and onto some foot pedals. Trust me, you'll see that the wheels rotate about 270 degrees. So unless you want your legs to hit the wheel, skip the foot pegs and go with some actual foot rests. And it looks like some sweet antennas coming out as well. Up to this point, I've only been adding small tack welds, and that is just so then it will hold it in place in case I needed to change anything. Now moving on to the full welds, I am using a MIG welding process, but I've done tons of frames with just flux cord. And I mean, I get asked all the time, what should I pick up or what welding process should I use? So if you're like me, we'll start out cheap, and then you can move your way up if it's something you actually enjoy doing. So a great little starter welder is the Titanium 125 from Harbor Freight. It's like 150 bucks, and it actually does a great job. And then you can always work your way up to MIG or TIG after that. And I mean, they got freaking laser welders now.
Frickin' laser beams!
So here pretty soon they'll probably have an AI welder that will take care of everything. Raise your hand if you love grinding. Shut up, no you don't. Yes, grinding is the equivalent of sanding to all you woodpeckers out there, and it sucks. Luckily, I just take off a couple of these weld joints, the ones that I actually need to sit flush. For example, the seat, or where the engine is going to sit. But I am cleaning up with a flapper disc all of that rust and mill scale that was left from, well, someone that thought it was a good idea to leave steel outside for 10 years. Primer? No primer. It's really your choice. With this type of paint, it actually gives you more of a metallic chrome look without it, but just to make it more consistent, I use that white primer, and it really does make this chrome blue just pop. And it was expensive. At 15 bucks, I did try to stretch one can. I mean, I probably could have used another, but I don't want to go back to the store. If you can remember how you took everything apart, well, the reassembly is a breeze. This is my third time doing these forks. If you colored within the lines to match mark the holes for those bearings, they should go on nicely. And for the engine, I'm actually just setting it on here. I will pull the bolts in there, but it's loose. And that's because I need to line that sprocket perfectly with the clutch. And whether you care, this is a number 40. It's, I think, a 10 tooth on the centrifugal clutch, and then a 60 tooth on the main sprocket. Sweet Amazon find here. This was like a $12 handlebar throttle cable. Now I did actually get an extension or a longer cable, but the actual hand lever itself went together nice and easy. And now for the other end, how do you attach it to a 212? Well, this is a very common setup for lots of small engines this sizes. Whether you've got a clone or a Honda, it's all about the same. We're going to want to take off the cover, and that gives us access to this little linkage over here. You know, get your hands right in the way so you can't see anything I'm doing. Send the cable through this little nut and bolt, tighten it down, and then really that's about it. Picked up some wheels from a karting shop, and they were metric. Not that it matters because they have metric wheel hubs. Obviously, you're just going to match whatever you have. A little lube helps it go right in. I was super excited for this first test run, and it went okay. There was a couple things I learned. Remember how I said I was going to need to add another support? Well, yes. I don't know if I can portray this in the video, but the steering is very wobbly. And so much so that if you just hit it, it actually just shakes back and forth. So of course, here we are back in the garage doing what I love best, grinding away. So I'm adding 2 stiffeners, one on each side for the base. That will kind of help the twisting motion. And then to help the top fork, I'm adding yet another beam going all the way up to the top for that one. And a little paint touch up, and no one's the wiser. Quick tip, if you do not want the pull stud to go into the back of the seat, well, you can easily rotate it and resecure it. And just for safety, because it kind of did take off on me once, let's add a spring here just to make sure the throttle always goes back closed. And we are ready for round 2, and it is amazing how much just those couple little supports add for the stability. And my boy wanted to take it over to the park, so let's head on over. Now I know I'm going to be asked, how much did it cost? Well, I don't know at this point, so check out the description where I'll have a bunch of the links and the final price. You probably don't care, but I was pretty proud. Parked it like this, first try.